there's a saying which is the Lou Rudin way. That's really true. The core of that is caring for each other in a respectful way, listening to individual opinions, whether they're aligned with what you think or not. It's providing the forum, big, small, one-on-one, to hear what the issues are and then how to tackle the problems together.
We just had a really good sense of what was right and wrong and what was fair in the world. Early on, we learned about philanthropy. We taught that to our kids and the importance of giving back.
Well, Howard was someone who not only could read the public and have a very good idea of how situations would unfold, but he really had the ability to get the ear of just about everybody.
A lot of the credit goes to Lou Rudin and his brother Jack. When New York was in trouble, they really rallied together to say, we have to be behind the recovery of New York. And they kept it going to be a positive force, not just in recovery, but in moving issues of importance to the city forward at all levels. And we're really in the forefront of partnerships long before partnerships were in vogue.
New York has changed for the better because of ABNY. I'm very pleased to be a small part of it. Most impressive thing about ABNY over these many years has been its consistency. Always there, always looking for solutions rather than trying to stir the waters.
I think ABNY is unique right now because we're not trying to just be for a single community. We're trying to be as broad a community as possible. That's a place that creates consensus. And in a moment where people mostly scream on Twitter, we're trying to be a group that brings people together, that keeps them informed, and that has them inform their networks in a way that's meaningful.
We keep our eye on the ball and focus and bring the right people to the table and have the conversation and come up with the ideas that will help strengthen our city during any crisis. And that's, I think, always been a key part of ABNY's mission.
And it's just extraordinary that within this pluralistic world, we also have this tribalism. And I think one of the things that ABNY does well and really, especially now, really devote itself to is how those two can work together. And to me, that's the excitement of cities. It's the excitement particularly of New York, which is the preeminent city.
No matter our differences, we're unified by our desire to see our hometown succeed. Every time New York has been at a series of crossroads, facing existential challenges, ABNY's always been there.
New York has been through many, many crises over its history, and each time it has been able to be resilient enough to come back stronger than before the crisis. And in order to make sure that we do that again this time, we all have to work together. And there are a few places where that type of conversation can happen, and ABNY is one of them.
Our city was already hurting in the darkest days, and when Lewis died, it just compounded that. And, there were a lot of people in town that said, how could anybody fill Lou Rudin's shoes? And, Bill did it, and Bill did it greater and better than anybody ever thought he could.
Lou had great family values, and he had Billy. And Billy just stepped up and filled the void left by Lou almost seamlessly and effortlessly.
Once a year he'd say, should we keep this going? And everybody said, sure. And then that was the end. I mean, we just did. We just kept going. And there really was the feeling of the I love New York. And how can I help New York?
I think my father's priority in his stewardship of ABNY was to, continue building upon the legacy of his father and continue to make sure that New York City was the greatest that it could be, and ensuring that it didn't matter whether you're a Republican or a Democrat or whatever, political affiliation, doesn't matter what industry or sector you're in, nonprofit, business, labor, to continue sort of reaching across the standard party lines to make sure that people come together and effectively discuss and plan, how we make sure that, the city is a great place for everybody and can effectively move forward all together.
Going back to 1978, when I went to the first meeting, it was just like a place to assemble. It was a kind of a networking organization, which is great. There's nothing wrong with that. But I think over the years, it became really more of like an advisory group that people would come and try out their ideas and hear what the responses were. That's what it was for me.
I think ABNY's role in 2008, we dusted ourselves off and got back on the saddle and worked together to find solutions to make sure that our city could recover. And I'll never forget Mayor Michael Bloomberg did an incredible speech talking about the aftermath of 2008 and what he believed would be a very strong recovery, which he turned out to be 1,000% correct.
You just have to have the courage of your convictions and the belief that we can get there and understand, what does New York have?
Bill decided that we had to figure out a way to give back to communities and reward communities that were doing great things on their own and not having the kind of help or funding that would take them to the next level. And that's what we do at the ABNY Foundation. We help organizing groups, we help advocacy groups, people that are working in the trenches and helping organizations that really contribute to the betterment of New York, to the fabric of New York, and recognizing how important all of these organizations, when you tie it all together, we're one community of 8 million people.
I think would be remiss also if we didn't acknowledge the tremendous leadership of Samantha and Michael Rudin, who really have taken the helm.
Samantha's vision was about high quality conversation, high quality experience, and fostering conversations for professional women. For a lot of industries, despite our best efforts and despite the times that we live in, are still dominated by men. And that can be a very isolating experience. Working with the young professionals was my favorite part of ABNY. We had exceeded all of our hopes and dreams about creating a community where anybody who was interested in civics would have a place to learn. It gave me a chance to meet a lot of what I am convinced are going to be the future leaders of New York.
In many ways, ABNY has struck out in new directions and become more helpful in using its resources, not just as a cheerleader, but as an active participant.
Stephen has brought his fresh lens and view and has focused on the census, and I think also really brings intuitive, deep quality.
The future of New York really belongs to every New Yorker.
One of the things that ABNY's always been criticized by and of is being Manhattan-centric, real estate-centric, and big business. And I think Stephen has taken that criticism very seriously.
Stephen has the creativity, has the articulate abilities to phrase our issues and problems, the knowledge of what the current climate and environment is in the city, the need, for example, for a focus on diversity and inclusiveness and inclusion.
ABNY's been lucky to have wonderful leaders, executive directors to work alongside. The chairs, Michelle was a rock star, a relentless grower of ABNY's mission. Jen Hensley, same, pushed us towards the tech community and appreciating its value amongst many other things. And Angela, like a super wonky, brilliant person who understands the city, all in different ways, on top of the original Mary Holloway who had the job, got us to stay relevant at times where the organization was always needed to change. We were lucky to get Melva to be our first CEO. She's a force of nature, and I think her passion and her respect for people and her desire to grow ABNY and help us grow our diversity and reach into different communities has really been essential for us.
I'm excited and humbled to continue the tradition that began with Lou, Jack, and Howard, and now under the stewardship of Stephen, and this long line of formidable women, the executive directors of ABNY, who have gone on and continued as leaders and innovators here in New York. In the wake of the fiscal crisis of the 1970s, 9/11 and Lou's passing, the 2008 crisis, Superstorm Sandy, and the COVID crisis, ABNY has served as a unifying voice and an extended family, and an environment where members can reach across the aisles and experiences, plan in the face of crisis, and have important and necessary conversations. Through Bill's and Stephen's leadership, along with the ABNY Foundation, the boards, the steering committee, and our member organizations, ABNY has broadened the umbrella to truly reflect the needs of all New Yorkers, beyond Manhattan, beyond real estate, beyond certain unions and nonprofits, to all boroughs and all residents. Moving forward with a new membership structure, the ABNY Young Professionals, ABNY Women, and our targeted projects in the many communities of New York City, we will have the diversity and energy ABNY needs to match what this dynamic city demands to ensure its future is what we want and need it to be. And as we look ahead to the next 50 years, this is the mandate that will ensure a meaningful momentum for ABNY and for its role in the city of New York. Happy 50th anniversary, ABNY.
My father always said, the city's been really good to us and gave our family a lot, and you should give back to it.